Welcome to the Ellis podcast.
All right, everybody. It is a huge weekend of pro football, and then we end up on Monday with the college football national championship game. So just huge times for football, not just this weekend. Yes, this is really big with the college football final on Monday, but also the fact that this week is the divisional playoff. Next week is the championship games for the AFC and NFC. We get a week off, and then we have the Super Bowl. So what I wanted to do is record a Rewind Sessions football special, and I want to do this a couple of times over the next few weeks. I want to take a couple of football movies and do a Rewind Sessions on them. So we'll start off today, and maybe I'll do 3, maybe 4, culminating that last one. Maybe it's Super Sunday or the Saturday before the Super Bowl. So I appreciate all the great follows, all the great responses, people really reaching out and saying they appreciate what I'm doing. And that means a lot to me. It's been able to allow me to connect with friends that I haven't talked to for a while and just getting really positive affirmations from them on what I'm doing here with the podcast, whether it's Rewind Sessions, football, baseball, basketball, connecting with Murph, with Buckler, really good stuff. So I appreciate that. I would really like you to continue to follow me, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. Make sure you follow me so you get new episodes put right into your inbox on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, but also on YouTube, because we do videos, whether it's Murph and I for football or whether it's just me doing a Rewind Sessions. I always do these podcasts as both video and audio. So follow me on YouTube as well. Go to Ellis Media, and you can follow me. Click the like button on the episode you listen to, but also definitely subscribe. Subscribe. Please, please, please. It's very important. If you want to email me at jamie@tellusellis.com. Ask me questions. If you want to be part of the show, just let me know. I would love to have you part of the show. And again, I'm going to start answering some of the questions that have gathered over the last several weeks pretty soon. And then social media. Follow me on X, follow me on Instagram at TellUsEllisHQ. And I write a lot. I'll be doing it a lot today during the football games, I'm sure. And I'm still waiting for the Orioles to make that announcement about signing Framber Valdez, right? I mean, they've got to get him. If they get him, sky's the limit. I think this team can compete with anybody in the American League East and the American League. So, but for today, very special video rewind sessions, movie rewind sessions. And today it is the Rewind Sessions football special from 1993, the movie Rudy. So there are sports movies about winning championships. There are sports movies about somebody changing the game, right? And then there's Rudy, a movie about answering a call that doesn't really make any sense on paper, but Rudy isn't really about football. Football's the setting. Notre Dame is just the symbol. What the movie is actually about is what happens when someone feels pulled towards something they're not qualified for, not built for, and really not welcomed into, and they decide to do it anyway. Don't get me wrong, the football setting in Notre Dame make the movie that much more special and meaningful, but it really is just a setting that probably pulls a little more tears from you, especially in us men, admittedly. It's about persistence without applause. It's about belief with evidence, and it's about showing up every day knowing the outcome might never change. Hopefully this all makes sense. But that's why Rudy still works today. It's because at some point in our lives, we've all been Rudy, standing outside the gates of something sacred, wondering if wanting it badly enough could ever be enough. And here's the key thing. This movie never promises us that wanting something badly enough guarantees success. It promises something quieter and maybe more honest, that meaning can exist even when the results fall short. So today on the Rewind Sessions, we're going back to 1993. I was in college, and while I was at Penn State, we're going back to 1993 to South Bend, and back to one of the simplest, most emotionally effective sports films ever made. I truly believe that. And that is Rudy. So let's just start with a little context. Rudy comes out in 1993. It's a moment when sports movies were still deeply earnest, I'll say. This is before cynicism fully took over the genre, before social media, before irony became the default tone. It's an era when movies still believed effort mattered, when sincerity wasn't something you had to apologize for. So Notre Dame at this point, it's still a national myth. Even if you weren't a fan, you knew what it represented: tradition, discipline, faith, excellence, history. It had the gold helmets, the golden dome, the basilica, the grotto, the idea that this place meant something beyond wins and losses. And culturally, America still loved underdog stories told straight, like with no winks, no deconstruction, just the belief that if someone worked hard enough, something, maybe not everything, but something might break their way. So Rudy belongs to that world, and it never tries to be anything else. This movie was directed by David Anspaugh, who you may know or may not know, directed another movie about a sports underdog, Hoosiers, just 7 years earlier in 1986. So let's dig into the movie Rudy, and let's talk about what I'll call Act One, and that is The Dream is Born. So we meet Rudy Rudiger in Joliet, Illinois, a small town surrounded by limitations. It's a steel town. They have the steel mill. We've seen these movies before, right? He's small. He's dyslexic. Rudy struggles in school. He comes from a family that doesn't dream, they survive. The message around him is subtle but constant. It's kind of like know your place in this town that we live in, which town in that context meant the world we live in. Football exists in Rudy's life, but Notre Dame exists in his imagination. It's always on television, always just out of reach, bigger than the game itself. He plays football with friends in the very opening scene. He watches Notre Dame football with his dad. He can repeat Newt Rockne's locker room speeches. His dad loves Notre Dame football, and so does Rudy. And he wants to go to Notre Dame, but he's just not a good student. He daydreams about Notre Dame football. He wants to get on the bus to visit the school in high school when kids are going to check out colleges, but he's literally told it's not for him. I mean, a teacher literally tells him it's not for him. He's surrounded by friends in his world, and Pete is one of his friends and a very close friend. You see him from when he's little to when they're working in the mill together. So all of this happens. Rudy has these dreams inside of him. He's living in this small steel mill town. Rudy and Pete are working at the steel mill one day, and Pete gets into this horrific accident. Rudy couldn't save him. It wasn't Rudy's fault. He was trying to put out a fire. There was no water flow, and Pete, trying to save the mill himself, dies. And suddenly, this dream that Rudy's had his whole life, it stops being abstract. Loss kind of creates an urgency in him. The dream isn't about glory, it's about meaning. It's about not wasting what little time we might have. That's how I took this. He sees Pete pass away. Rudy has all these dreams, and all of a sudden it's like, I've got to live out my dreams and I have to do it now. I want to talk about Pete for a second. He's only in the show or only in the movie very early on, and he represents the voice of doubt that still loves you. So he's not cruel. Pete is not cruel, but he is practical. And he believes Rudy is setting himself up for disappointment. Rudy has this dream of going to Notre Dame, even playing football at Notre Dame, and Pete is that voice of reason. And that's what makes him important. Again, I want to stress, he isn't a villain. He loves Rudy, and that comes across very well, and Rudy loves him. But he sees the world as it is. And his death isn't just sad. It removes the last anchor that really is holding Rudy in place. The dream stops becoming something Rudy talks about and becomes something he has to chase. And you see that almost immediately after Pete dies. So that's kind of how I see the first act in this movie. It's the setup and it's the event that puts Rudy in a place of moving from dreaming to trying to chase it. So then act two, I'll call it the long road in. Boy, we see a lot of obstacles in Rudy's way. Rudy's first obstacle isn't football. Really, is while he dreams about football, his first obstacle is academics. He doesn't get into Notre Dame. He wants to go there, but he doesn't get in. But he does get into Holy Cross. And if you know anything about Notre Dame, Holy Cross is a school that is right off campus from Notre Dame. And students go to Holy Cross, and some of them have this dream of going to Notre Dame, but they have to perform well at Holy Cross in order to get into Notre Dame. And this is true to this day. I know this because my daughter Paige goes to Notre Dame, and she has friends that went to Holy Cross with a dream of getting into Notre Dame, much like Rudy, although they're not trying to play football. But Rudy is told that he can get into Holy Cross, and if he does well the first semester academically, he may be given a chance to attend a second semester at Holy Cross. And if he does well in his second semester at Holy Cross, maybe, just maybe, he'll have a chance to go to Notre Dame. So what happens? Well, he finishes his first semester, does well enough, tries to get into Notre Dame, but he's rejected. And he goes back and he studies and he struggles. He fails tests. He takes them again. And the scenes are deliberately like very unglamorous. You even see it in how the filmmaking works. There's this fluorescent classroom lighting, there are late nights, there's embarrassment of failing tests, small victories that don't really feel like victories yet. But the movie makes an important point here, and that is you can have this belief, but it doesn't replace work. Belief demands work, it demands even more work. So at this time, Rudy has this relationship with a Father Kavanaugh at Holy Cross. And Father Kavanaugh is somebody that I want to say gives Rudy hope, but he never promises Rudy success. Instead, he asks the question that the movie kind of keeps returning to, and that is, what are you doing with your life? And it's not, what do you want? Because we know what Rudy wants. It's, what are you doing? And Father Kavanaugh represents quiet guidance. He doesn't push Rudy towards Notre Dame. He pushes him towards effort, discipline, and honesty. And that's where that question of, what are you doing, kind of keeps coming back time and time again. At this time, another character's introduced, and I think this is one of the most important characters in the movie, and that is the groundskeeper at Notre Dame, and his name is Fortune. And Fortune becomes Rudy's unexpected companion. Never does Fortune seem like he wants to take a kid under his wings and help him and so forth. In fact, he's pretty hard on Rudy in the sense like, stop goofing off, just get back to work. We've got work to do today. Stop goofing off. But he does give Rudy this opportunity in groundskeeping, and this gets Rudy close to the actual game. Really good scenes on the field and in the locker room where Rudy is not quite living out his dream, but he keeps his hope up. Fortune at this time, he doesn't shout, like I said, he doesn't motivate. He just kind of observes Rudy and again calls him to task, going, "Hey, we've got work to do here." But he does say something that's important. He says, having dreams is what makes life tolerable. It's not inspirational, it's realistic. I mean, that's kind of what Fortune stands for. Fortune understands that belief doesn't guarantee payoff, and we later find out that Fortune was a Notre Dame player and he had a belief, but it didn't guarantee a payoff to him, and he sees this in Rudy. And maybe part of Fortune embodies Rudy and is living out his own dreams through Rudy. But again, Fortune understands belief doesn't guarantee payoff, but without it, the grind becomes unbearable. He gives Rudy the job chance. He also gives Rudy a place to live. He gives Rudy hope. He never admits to giving Rudy a place to live. I mean, it's literally in the office, the groundkeeper. He gives Rudy comes in one day and there's a cot and there's a key laying on it. And Fortune always says, I know nothing about it, but of course he does. So Fortune is there for Rudy. So that takes us kind of what I'll call act three. And that's For lack of a better term, I just kind of called it inside the machine. Rudy, after time and time again, after several semesters of working at Holy Cross, getting rejected to Notre Dame, finally he gets into Notre Dame. Now, you may think, great, his dream come true, right? He gets into Notre Dame, but that's just part one. Now he needs to make the team. And almost immediately, the dream shrinks again. And this is what this story kind of ends up being. It's like dream, work hard, bust my ass, get there. And then I have another challenge ahead of me. So he's in Notre Dame now. Now he has to make the team. And to do that, he has to be a walk-on. And at the time, Notre Dame didn't accept a lot of walk-ons. I think in the movie, there's a line that says something like, hey, we have 15 people trying out. We'll be lucky if one or two of you make the team. But this is where Rudy, and you saw this early on in some high school clips when Rudy played football, he just outworks everybody. He doesn't have the size, he doesn't have the strength, he doesn't have the athleticism, but he has courage and will. And in the end, that courage and will stands out. And the defensive coach gives him an opportunity. And again, he made it. He is on the team. He is a walk-on the team. He is at Notre Dame doing everything he wanted to do. Busted his ass to get there, but he's there. So what did I just say a couple minutes ago? Now there's another obstacle. He's a walk-on. He's invisible. He is a tackling dummy. He is someone the system tolerates but doesn't invest in. They need guys to try to beat the shit out of the players that are going to play every Saturday. But in reality, the players beat down on these walk-ons and fourth string players, and he is a practice dummy for all intents and purposes. Don't get me wrong. It's an accomplishment. He's playing for Notre Dame, but he doesn't get to dress for the games. He doesn't even get to sit on the sideline. He doesn't even get to go to the games. He is literally a practice dummy. And the practices are brutal. The coaches are indifferent. The players are annoyed. And this is where the movie kind of earns its credibility to me, because being close to the dream without being part of it hurts almost more than being far away from not even making it into Notre Dame or making it as a walk-on. But Rudy isn't failing because he isn't trying hard enough. I mean, the guy puts his heart and soul on the line every practice. He's failing because some systems just aren't built for people like him. And, even when he busts his ass and is holding his own against players, they get pissed off at him because they're like, you're making us look bad. Stop trying so hard. You don't have to try so hard. You're making us look bad. And for Rudy, it's like, no, I want to make you the best you can be so you can win the game this weekend. This is a time we're also introduced to Coach Ara Parseghian, who, if anybody knows, he was a legendary coach at Notre Dame. Just really good coach. And it's important to understand, Parseghian, I don't want to say he's indifferent during this time. I mean, you kind of see him keeping an eye on Rudy, but even when the determination was made as to what walk-ons they would accept at Notre Dame, like Parseghian didn't really want to have a say on it. He left it up to his offensive and defensive coaches. Parseghian isn't a villain in this. He's realism personified. I mean, this is kind of how it works in college football. He sees rosters, he sees depth charts, he sees scholarships. He's got a ton of pressure on him, and he's right. He doesn't, Rudy doesn't make sense on paper. But Rudy isn't about who's right. It's about who shows up. So again, to explain it, Rudy is kind of an afterthought. Parseghian's got to win games, and his practice dummy, he doesn't really think about or worry about. So to Parseghian, the head coach, Rudy is just kind of a nobody. But I want to stress, you can see it in his eyes. You can see him kind of out of the corner of his eyes looking at Rudy throughout the movie and kind of in his head saying, man, this guy tries harder than anybody I know. So now I'm going to move this to what I'll call Act 4, and I'll call this kind of the waiting. Years pass. Again, Rudy practices without reward, no promise, no guarantee, just effort. And As time goes on, slowly something begins to change. It's not in the coaches, but it's in the locker room. Rudy becomes the standard for the rest of the team. The guy who never cheats effort, the guy who shows up early and stays late. The movie suggests something pretty radical here, and that's that meaning can become almost communal, and one person's faithfulness can lift everyone else. And this is in stark contrast to the beginning of the movie. Not the beginning of the movie, but the beginning of Rudy being on the Notre Dame team when, the players are saying, "Hey, you're showing me up, like, you're making me look bad. Stop practicing so hard." Suddenly his effort just makes everybody try that much harder. And again, one person's faithfulness, again, can lift everyone. And look, we've seen this in other movies to some degree. If you've ever seen the movie Invincible or American Underdog about Kurt Warner, look at Hoosiers. I mean, Hoosiers is a good example. Not necessarily in one player, but in a team that comes together with a coach who believes in them and they overcome. Miracle about the 1980 U.S. hockey team is another movie that does that. Even Rocky, I mean, think about him. He's the underdog. He's the guy that was thrown into a fight against the world champion, um, almost as a tune-up fight for the world champion. And then it's funny, I had to hearken back as I was thinking through this movie, and there was a movie in 1986 called Lucas. And I don't know if anyone remembers this movie. Charlie Sheen, a very young Charlie Sheen, was actually in this movie. And it is about this kid who really likes this girl, wants to impress her, goes out for the football team. He is even smaller, less athletic, and just uh, not a football player. But there's some parallels here. So, Rudy may have been um, content to just make the team, but he wanted something more, maybe for himself, but more likely to show his dad and his family what he did getting onto the Notre Dame team. They don't believe him when he talks about, "Hey, I'm on the Notre Dame team." Why would they believe him? I mean, this is, you know, he doesn't dress for games. He's not even on the sideline. This is the mid-60s when this takes place, and they certainly didn't have technology back then when somebody could go to X and read about the roster, who's hurt, who's on the, uh, um, the scout team, if you will. Rudy's name probably didn't even appear in a roster in a program that would be handed out every Saturday. So Rudy couldn't prove anything to the non-believers, but finally, it's he's approaching his senior year and he goes in to ask Coach Parseghian if he can dress just one game his senior year. And Parseghian says the things that Parseghian would say. "We've got a roster limit. I can't even give roster spots. I can't even allow some of my scholarship players to dress, Rudy. Can't do it. NCAA is really difficult." Rudy begs and pleads, and Parseghian, again, thinking of that look out of the corner of his eyes that we saw when he started at Notre Dame and put in all the effort, Parseghian says, "You know what, Rudy? I'm going to allow you to do it. I'm going to let you dress one game your senior year." And finally, after all of those times when Rudy had stumbling blocks and achieved, but then had another issue in front of him, all of the sudden, his full dream is becoming a reality. But then there's another obstacle. Parseghian leaves. And this is a true story. Parseghian left for health purposes. These coaches get burnout sometimes. And I think that's what happened to him. And a new coach is coming in. And will that new coach honor what Parseghian said that, "Hey, Rudy, you can dress your one game your senior year"? So now that takes us to kind of this last installment and maybe one of the most powerful scenes in the movie. And that is when the new coach is in his office and one of the players comes in and says, "Hey, I've got my jersey. I'm putting it on your desk. I don't want to dress for this upcoming game. I want Rudy to have my uniform." And the coach does what a coach would do, really no different than probably what Parseghian would do, which is, "You're one of my star players. You're dressing. Sorry, it's off the table. We're playing Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech, It was a good rivalry back then. We're not losing to Georgia Tech. Forget it. But then the next player comes in and the next player. And look, this isn't rebellion. I mean, don't think of it as rebellion. It wasn't that. I would say it's more testimony. They're saying, this guy matters. Rudy matters to our team. He helps us. He is part of the team. For this first time, the system kind of bends and Rudy gets to dress. He is literally living out all of his dreams with, again, all of the stumbling blocks. Rudy gets to dress. His family gets to see him. They come up for the game. His friends see him. The friends that he meets, it's really cool. I mean, kind of look at the friends he met along the way at Notre Dame and helped him, and people that he said, look, someday I'm going to play Notre Dame football. It's happening. And if that was it, if the movie ended right there with Rudy sitting on the sidelines or standing on the sidelines, dressing, watching the game, getting to run out of the tunnel, getting to go through the pregame prayer, if that's where the game ended, he would have lived out his dream. But this is where the big payoff comes in, because now it's others picking up and standing by Rudy. So Rudy he was done. He reached his dream. But now others are saying, Coach, you got to let him in for a play. And the coach at that time is like, no effing way am I doing that. In fairness, probably because he was worried that Rudy would get hurt. But the players just demand that he get into the game. And again, this wasn't about some type of strike by them or we'll walk off the field if you don't do that. It wasn't. It was just support. And finally, the players take matters into their own hands. They have the ball very late in the game. They could sit on it. That was the call. Just run out the clock. But the team decides to take it upon themselves to run a trick play, to score a touchdown, thus giving Rudy one more chance to get into the game. Because again, Rudy was a defensive player. They have the ball and they're running out time. Rudy's never going to get into the game. So then we go to the play, and I'll actually call it the plays. They score the touchdown, and all of a sudden, coach says, "Rudy, get out on the kickoff team. You're gonna be in the game." And Rudy finally gets into the game. Yeah, it's on the kickoff team, but this is more than he ever dreamed. Ever dreamed. And the kickoff happens. He's not really involved in the play, but damn it, he played a play at Notre Dame. But now there's 8 seconds left on the clock. And coach and players are like, Rudy, just stay out there. Stay out there for this one play. And, I forget what the score was. It was 23-3. Notre Dame had the game wrapped up, 8 seconds left. But Georgia Tech's going to try to run a play. They're going to try to score. So Rudy stays out there, doesn't really know where to line up, kind of just lines up wherever. I think he even moved up to the line or something. Georgia Tech snaps the ball, drops back for a pass. Here comes Rudy, and he sacks the quarterback. And the place goes crazy, absolutely crazy. I'll tell you, I get emotional. I get emotional at that scene. And there are only a couple of movies that make me emotional. And by the way, Rudy is a great movie. It is not a movie that I've seen 70 times. In fact, the first time I saw the movie was just before Paige left for Notre Dame. That was the first time I saw it, but it became an instant classic for me. Rudy didn't have talent. It wasn't about talent. It was because who he was to everyone else. The crowd chant, is it about the sack at the end? It's about recognition. What that effing guy did to push and push and push and live out more than his wildest expectations could ever be. Wow. I hope you saw the movie. If not, even if you heard my synopsis and you're like, oh shit, Jamie, you ruined it for me. Even if you heard it, go and watch the movie. And I hope you get choked up like I do. I want to talk a little bit about the background of the movie. Like specifically, let me talk about music and emotion and why it works. Jerry Goldsmith's score doesn't just accompany the movie, it carries it. It elevates ordinary effort into something kind of mythic. It manipulates us, but look, in this movie, emotion is the point. And Jerry is well known for his scores. He's an 18-time Academy Award nominee, including nominee for the original Planet of the Apes back in, I think it was the late 60s, 1969. The movie Patton, The Omen, in which he won an Academy Award. Star Trek, the original 1980s Star Trek. Poltergeist, Hoosiers, again, similarities. And by the way, his score in Hoosiers is, I can hear it play in my head all the time. It's fantastic. And then Mulan, which was the cartoon movie, but he also had an Academy Award nomination for that. He also won 5 Emmys and he was nominated for 6 Grammys. And you don't really realize, I shouldn't say you don't. I don't realize until I see a movie time and time again how much that music means. And again, as I'm sitting here, I've got the Hoosiers music going through my head. Let me talk about early reviews of the movie. They were largely very positive. Roger Ebert gave it a thumbs up with 3.5 stars. This is a quote from him. He said, "Underdog movies are a durable genre and never go out of style. They're fairly predictable in the sense that few movie underdogs ever lose in the big last scene. The notion is enormously appealing. However, because everyone can identify in one way or another, it makes it that much more special." So Ebert liked it. I would agree that yes, maybe the ending was, you could assume what would happen, but I think it went beyond what we assumed what would happen. And by the way, this was based on a true story. Make sure you know that. This was absolutely based on a true story. There is, so the American Film Institute, they do different lists every year. I say every year. They did a series of lists for a period of time. Rudy appeared as number 54 on the AFI's 100 Years, 100 Cheers list from 2006. So meaningful there. What about just legacy and rewatchability of this movie? I told you I haven't watched it 40 or 50 times, but does Rudy hold up in that rewatchable legacy realm? And I think mostly yes. It's sincere, it's patient, it isn't, embarrassed by its own heart. And that's kind of rare. I don't think it's not a movie like Hoosiers that has a lot of action in it that kind of gets your heart pounding. There isn't a lot of game action where you see Rudy coming off the bench and going in and having to make a big play. This is more individualistic versus looking at the team as a whole. So, maybe that's why I don't watch it as much. But when you do watch it, you get that tug on your heart. That is for sure. One thing I want to also talk about is just I like to look at appearances in movies and who showed up and maybe were a surprise in one way or another. So Sean Astin played Rudy. Is in a number, like I think he's done 100 some movie shows over his lifetime. I think he's most well known outside of Rudy. He played Sam in Lord of the Rings. I think that's probably where he is most well known outside of Rudy. He did appear on 9 episodes of Stranger Things. I'm not a Stranger Things watcher, but maybe that means something to Stranger Things fans. But yeah, he has a prolific content about him. But I can't say that when I looked at his movies, it was like, wow, he stands out in all of these movies. Now, Jon Favreau is also in this as D-Bob, one of the friends that he makes at Notre Dame. If you know Jon Favreau, some of you might know him from Swingers. He did a lot of independent films early in the day. Now he's a very prominent, yes, he still acts, but he's more of a writer and a producer and a director now. He is the Star Wars guru. He's done some of the newer Star Wars stuff, but very famous guy. And again, he appeared in this at a pretty early stage in his career as D-Bob. Ned Beatty, boy, Ned Beatty is Rudy's father in the movie. Do you know, I went to IMDb, Ned Beatty appeared in 63 different acting gigs in his career. It started with Deliverance, a classic movie. I won't get into some of the parts that he's most known for in that movie, a little uncomfortable, but from Deliverance to Silver Streak with Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder to Superman 1 and 2, Ned Beatty is You see him in so many different movies. He just shows up from time to time. Lily Taylor is in this movie. Lily plays Rudy's girlfriend, early girlfriend at a later age. She ends up, she wanted to marry Rudy. That was the plan. They had been boyfriend, girlfriend since an early age. They graduate high school. Rudy's going to work in the mill, and Lily Taylor, the actress Lily Taylor, her goal is, yeah, now we get married. Let's look at this house. Let's buy this house. And Rudy just wanted something different. So he moves on to Notre Dame, comes home. Actually, he moved on to Holy Cross, comes home for Christmas one year, and he sees that his older brother is now with Lily Taylor, the actress, and he realizes what he's missing. I think it pisses him off because he's like, I'm busting my ass here at Holy Cross. I can't get ahead. I can't get into Notre Dame. And now I come home and it's just mud on my face that my girlfriend for all those years is now with my brother. Lily Taylor, by the way, was in the movie Say Anything. She had a role in that as one of the friends of the main character. And then I also remember her from 6 Feet Under, great series on HBO. If you have not watched 6 Feet Under, it is absolutely binge worthy. You should do it. Chelsea Ross is in this movie as the new coach of Notre Dame after Parseghian leaves. Chelsea Ross, the best role I've appreciated him playing is definitely Eddie Harris in the movie Major League. Eddie Harris, the old veteran pitcher who throws all this junk and is just old and has this rift with Joe Boo and just really funny. But then last, and I don't know how many people know this, Vince Vaughn is in this movie. He plays Jamie O'Hara, a football player who flips out on Rudy at a practice, and then Parseghian just lays into him and says, you know, if you had 1/10 the effort that Rudy did, you would be able to live out, you know, what you should be, which is a star, but instead, essentially, you're lazy and do nothing. So, yeah, really interesting. I always like to look at those actors, actresses who have maybe smaller parts, but then obviously lead bigger careers later down the road. So kind of just to recap what Rudy is really saying, the movie isn't promising results. It's honoring faithfulness. It's saying that some callings don't end with applause, but they still matter. You know, Rudy never made the NFL, never even came close to it, never even sniffed it. I mean, barely played Division I college football at Notre Dame, but he still became something worth carrying. Sometimes the reward isn't the dream itself, although he did realize his dream, but it's who you become while chasing it. And that's, to me, why Rudy still matters to this day. You see the growth, you see the development, but it's a guy who ended up not just fulfilling his dreams, but fulfilling so much more than that. I'm telling you guys, this is a tearjerker movie to me. I kid you not. I cry. I don't all out bawl. I mean, maybe I'm disclosing too much here, but I definitely whimper at the end of this movie because it's just so fulfilling. So again, if you have not watched this movie, please watch it. I always have spoilers in these things because I have to. But even if I gave you some spoilers, still go back and watch the movie. I think you'll find it really rewarding. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this. I certainly did, and I will watch Rudy again and again. So let this prepare you for the national championship game on Monday. Let this prepare you for the remainder of the NFL playoffs. And hopefully you enjoyed this rewind session. And again, hope you enjoyed it. All right, everybody, really enjoyed going through the movie Rudy, and hopefully you did too. Again, this is just one of a few rewind sessions I'm going to be doing leading up to the Super Bowl, all football focused. I know one other one that I'm definitely doing, and then I have like 5 or 6 movies to fill 1 or 2 spots. So I will let you know the day it's released. You'll see it in the title, and hope you look forward to it. A reminder, follow the podcast on YouTube at Tell Us Ellis Media. Like the episode if you do like it. Give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment. But subscribe. Subscribe so you don't have to do any work. All new episodes just appear in your inbox within YouTube. You're alerted to it. something new. Same thing with Apple Podcasts, same thing with Spotify. Follow the show and they'll automatically appear in your feed, and you can drive to work and listen to all of the Tell Us Ellis shows, and hopefully you get a lot of enjoyment out of it. Follow me on my social media channels on X and on Instagram. Follow me at Tell Us Ellis HQ, and then email me if you want to be part of the show. If you have questions, if you have comments, jamie@tellusellis.com. Everybody, I so much appreciate the follows. I love doing this stuff. Even if I had 0, I think I'd still do this because I love doing it. I love talking about entertainment. I love talking about sports. It is my life, the things I enjoy, and being able to talk about it all the time. So hopefully you enjoy it too. Until next time.